Next team.
Let's hit it. San Antonio Spurs. I'll read it while you're setting the timer. Their key free agents: Trey Jones, Romeo Langford, restricted. Zach Collins is eligible for an extension. It's too bad they're going to draft Wembanyama because he was promised the starting center spot next year. So I don't know what they're going to do. Probably play him. They have a bunch of cap space, $33 million if they renounce Langford and keep this 33 if they keep Collins and Trey Jones holds on the books. No trade exceptions. Their biggest needs: 7'4", shot blocking, shot creating center. I don't know where they're going to find one of those. They're kind of a blank slate though, right? Like you can do
whoa.
Well, they have they don't need the next great 3-and-D wing who can create shots because they have Devin Vassell already.
You could talk yourself into any position because it's like Wemby, is he a future 5? Not right away.
That's the thing.
But you could also get a 4 and just play them alongside Wemby. Do you get a center who doesn't close because Wemby's going to close at the 5? And you have all these other in Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, even Keldon Johnson. You could kind of move around. I view him as more of just like a 6'5" 4. But yeah, you could get anyone. I would say if you were to pick a need, though, I skew more towards let's try and make life easier on Devin Vassell, Wemby. Don't saddle them with too much creation. And I like Trey Jones. He's probably back. But you would like to see them upgrade their advantage creation.
I think making it easier on Wembanyama specifically, and Vassell still matters too, obviously, but should be priority one. And you can get there a couple ways. I think one, you need not an enforcer like these exist anymore, but just like another big to play center and like
Tyler Hansborough.
Yeah, sure. Just get all the Hansborough brothers out there. Just someone. So this is my Brook Lopez spot.
2-year maximum.
Just whatever you got to pay him just to come in and like beat up bigger centers and also anchor an how good is this defense? If Wembanyama is anything close to his advertised plus Brook Lopez as your anchor, like what happens? Are they automatically a top 5 defense? I don't know. So that's one way to do it. You just get like some bulk. So Wembanyama doesn't always have to play center if that's not what you want him to do. And the other thing is, like you said, Trey Jones might be this guy, but just someone who is going to get Wembanyama like 4 easy buckets a night that just whether it's pick and roll or just someone to be the adult that's in charge of this offense that makes sure it's not Wembanyama going into his bag 30 feet from the bucket, like Jalen Greening it. We don't need a Jalen Green developmental curve for Wembanyama offensively. So those are the priorities for me.
I would agree with you. And like they can do it in free agency. Like if they could be a Fred VanVleet destination. I don't know if he's a good enough passer. He probably is. I think when you have Wemby and Vassell and even Jeremy Sohan, that would be fine. I think when you're looking at like free agents, I traditionally be like, well, just go after all these young guys. I'm okay if they went like you mentioned Brook Lopez. I mentioned FEV. If they went like all these guys are still young, the names that I put down. But like if they went like young players, like are there any on the market that you would be like, hey, why don't you try throwing a bunch of money at them to see like, would you do that for a PJ Washington, a Grant Williams, a Cam Johnson, any of those types of guys, or even Ayo Dosunmu, Austin Reeves, the early bird restricted free agent crew?
Austin Reeves, I would poison pill so fast. I would like what I would.
That sounds like a threat.
Yeah, it's a threat to the Lakers. No, wouldn't you? I mean, he is. I don't think anyone's going to get him away from LA, but I would. And you don't want to just tie up your money on an offer sheet that you know is getting matched. Like that's dumb. And that may prevent Reeves from getting offer sheets he would otherwise get. He's still the guy that stands out most to me of all the players you listed of like, just give me that guy. Cause I'm not convinced he couldn't be just a full-time point guard potentially. Cause I mean, he was in college. Like, I think he is more of a combo type player in the NBA, but you might be able to like him and Trey Jones in a backcourt. I kind of like, because you can split the playmaking a little bit. I just like Reeves full stop. I like Grant Williams. I think he might be of the restricted guys you mentioned among the more gettable. Cause like, I think Cam Johnson's getting matched. I think PJ Washington might be gettable too, if you overbid, but yeah, Williams. I like
great. I mean, him and Grant Williams specifically, I think would be better fits next to, Cam Johnson's shooting, but you get that in Williams and some of it from Washington. Cause you want shooting. next to him. You know what the name is, and he's actually young. Naz Reid. Someone who like you need Wemby to kind of be your 5 on offense, at least as a rim protector. That works with Naz Reid. Do you worry about their collective heft or the lack thereof of how do they match up against like against if they had to like guard like bigger, burlier 5s? I don't know if they're best suited to do that, but like Naz Reid can move around the perimeter, and I think you could get him if you how often are you facing these like mega post up brutes anyway? You could probably get away with that. I actually think he might be like a sneaky good get for them to where you don't have to lean into Wemby at the 5. But he's kind of your 5. He's not really your 5. Do you get enough rebounding? That's a fair question, but that's a name I circled for them.
Is there a reason they shouldn't just beat the market on Bruce Brown? Like we keep talking about him as an MLE guy, but what, like if you're the Spurs, screw it. Like we'll just, 15, 16 million.
The thing that I could see giving the Spurs pause is they want to see, well, first of all, by the way, Bruce Brown's only 26. He turns 27. Like that's not old.
No.
So, what's interesting about them is I would just bet against them making any major moves because it's the Spurs and they're going to see what they have in Wemby. But we just mentioned this. I don't know if it was on this podcast or the previous one. I think it was the previous one. Leasing out cap space, if not this summer, I would assume next season is going to get a lot more valuable. And yes, you have to worry about the salary floor. So maybe you make those moves in the offseason. Like you could just, this could be a Clint Capella team if the Hawks are that desperate to cut money. Like he's someone who makes sense. A Jonas Valanciunas team. Like that, like if the Pelicans are just looking to duck the tax that way, it could be they could also just like, can we buy on like distressed assets or players that are like an Isaiah Hartenstein, who's not a distressed asset, but are the Knicks willing to give him up because like they need a different type of 5 or they trust Jericho Sims or they're looking to increase their flexibility under the tax? They could be more aggressive. Like what's Houston doing with Alperen Şengün? Like what's the cost to get him out? They can go any number of different routes, but I am wondering, this is my long-winded point of saying like, yeah, they could go and absorb like more expensive players or actually target them, but will they just maybe go the route of let's take on like a Tobias Harris? What's the compensation for him? I don't think the Sixers have enough or wouldn't give up a first-round pick, but like, is there a team going to give you first-round equity to take on less than savory money? And the Spurs are like the team when you're talking about patience and process right now that might be most likely to do that.
Yeah, could you get Gordon Hayward and like all of Charlotte's picks except for number 2, obviously, for just take him into space, basically? Like there's definitely Harris was actually the first name I came up with. I just couldn't imagine that Philly. You probably have to send like Keldon Johnson back or something and get a bunch of picks with that. Like I don't know, but yeah, totally valid point. I think we did, especially since they have all this runway with Wembanyama, because no San Antonio fan is going to be pissed off for like 5 years. You can just take on bad money and deal with it, for a while, I think.
I left it off, so it's not your fault. But Devin Vassell is extension eligible. And we talked about this. I had a Spurs podcast after they got Wemby with Noah Magaro-George from Project Spurs. But what are you paying him? His max extension is the Desmond Bane extension, which would be like 5 years and almost $200 million.
I think there's a scenario where he's worth close to that, and we might think so after this season. I'm not going all the way there right now. I would say like 150. So he's making under 40 a year on average.
I would do it.
You would do it?
Yeah.
Are you going to
actually be above 207? I was looking at the wrong year. Above $200 million on 5 years. I don't know that I would go for the max, but I think he's very clearly going to be worth more than $30 million a year at his peak.
I think if he were playing on a team that more people saw, like nationally, he would be regarded as like
his ball skills have improved, like coming around screens, and he has more. I wouldn't call him an every level scorer, but he can certainly trend towards that. You need him to put more pressure on the basket, but he can trend towards that direction, and he works without the ball, which is super important.
Yeah, I think he's someone that he's not anywhere close defensively to where like Mikal Bridges is, but he's someone that's making the offensive like skill expansion moves sooner than Bridges did. So if he gets anywhere close to where Bridges is now offensively in terms of like just individual shot creation, then I mean that is a $200 million player probably. And that was my last thought. So we nailed the timing on that one.